Welcome to Boomers on Travel. Yes, you can enjoy travel to foreign and exotic destinations, even if you're a boomer on a tight budget. Here are your hosts, Irene and Mike. Now, let's talk travel. Okay, here I am in Lucca, and we're at an expat group today, and we have Joanne and we have Norma. So far, I can remember their names, and Candace. So, hey, I'm doing good, guys. But I just think this is great. We have a beautiful sunny day today. The rain finally stopped. And I'm just so curious about their lives here. And Joanne, could you tell me a little bit about how you ended up here?
I actually came here for the first time about 8 years ago because I thought once in a lifetime I wanted to study Italian in Italy. And one of the best schools to do that in is here in Lucca. It's Lucca Italian School. And so I came for a month. It was my 60th birthday present to myself. And I was here for a month, and it wasn't once in a lifetime. I very quickly started coming back every year. And just last summer, sold my house at home in the United States, which was in New Mexico, and moved here.
It sounds like a dream come true.
For me.
Now, were you able to accomplish the Italian as far as learning how to speak Italian?
Oh, that's a lifelong process for me. I can speak grocery store Italian, and I can do basic things in Italian, but I'm definitely still a learner. But I'm taking private lessons still every week and making a little progress every month. What can I say?
Sounds perfect to me. I said you're going to be here a long time. You're going to have a long life. I can just tell. And this is just great. Now we have Norma. And now tell me a little bit about your blog, because don't you have a blog, Joanne?
Thank you for asking. I do have a blog. It's called Two Parts Italy, twopartsitaly.com. I write with a friend who is hopefully soon to move to Lucca, and we publish an article every Monday, and it's largely about all things Italian. It might be travel, food, experiences, culture, and then some other travel mixed in. If I go somewhere else, I'll write about that. But I write a lot about Lucca. For instance, today is an article about Santa Zita, who is a very important person here in Lucca, important historical person. So it's great.
Well, that's wonderful.
I have lots to write about living here.
Well, I'm sure all our listeners will be very interested. I hope you all caught that. Now, Norma, tell us a little bit about yourself and how long you've lived here.
Well, I first came to Italy when I was 19, and so that was quite a while ago. And I rode my bike from Florence to Torre del Lago, passing around the walls of Lucca, and I slept at the hostel because it was farther than I thought. And I took a long time to come back here permanently. In 95, I moved to Lucca.
Perfect. And so apparently you really got sold on it then, right? You
yeah.
fell in love?
I just fitted into Lucca like a hand in a glove? Is that what we say? Yes.
So you fit just like into a glove when you came here, correct? Now, do you have a magazine or something I heard a little bit about?
Called Grapevine, which has been in existence since for 25 years. And I've been writing from the beginning. Now I'm the owner of the magazine. And it gives advice about living here as well as cultural information, a calendar. Of course, it's in English, monthly magazine. And it can be also consulted on the web, and you can subscribe online or pick it up in newsstands.
Wonderful. Congratulations, to both of you for making the adjustment. And I hope someday that I have the opportunity to follow in your steps.
One thing, when I was researching, we came into Lucca. As you say, I have a service dog, and we're flying to Ireland, and I need to get him dewormed, a pill, before we leave. So I went onto the site, and I was surprised. I had like 15 people come and say, this is the vet you can go to. They speak English. I really, really want to thank everybody for that, because I visited him today, and we're going to go Friday, I believe it is, and get his deworming done. So that's pretty neat. And
Mike and I had the opportunity to go touring the cemeteries here in Italy, and we just found them like open-air museums, botanical gardens, and so Mike wrote a little story about it yesterday, and I think he's probably going to submit it to your Grapevine. Yes, I was looking to my Italian connection. And I was very fortunate. I have, I've had a lot of help in the States with people helping me research, and I have made some very close connections recently.
Was it a big decision deciding, to actually pull the trigger to come here to live?
For me, this is Joanne. It was really difficult because I have 2 children and 4 grandchildren back in New Mexico. So for the Nona to pick up and move to another country was kind of a big deal. So it took me a while living here half the year, part-time after I retired, before I decided I really needed to come and at least spend a couple years here and see how that worked. And luckily next week, one of my children and 2 of my grandchildren will come and visit me here.
Well, that's wonderful, and that's great to see stories like that and hear things like that. And Irene, we've been coming here, like we said, for many years, and we've been to Venice, I don't know how many times. We've been, to Rome, I don't know how many times. But ever since Irene has done the DNA test, we started going to the graveyards. How wonderful. There's this art to themselves, and how much the Italian families place on that. And I can remember when we were kids, and even before at one time in the States, that they used to have picnics in our cemeteries. Families would go there and make a Sunday of it. And I'm afraid maybe we're losing that a little bit in our country. And I'm just curious because of our age bracket, is part of coming here maybe trying to capture things like when we were younger, how life was, and they still kind of see that here?
I don't know if it's so much trying to recapture the way life was, because I grew up between New York and Colorado, which are really different. But I think it is about trying to capture a different kind of life, a life that involves walking, not cars, that has a different social fabric to it, that is a little bit of a cafe society where you meet people in the street and you stop for a coffee and you're not all racing around. And for me, that's really important. And I suppose there are some really small towns in the U.S. that still have that, but certainly not any of the places that I've lived recently.
It's a different value system, and especially Lucca is particular because of the walls. It maintains its old character. We value food, of course, and family, and I think that we're a little less driven than Americans are.
Nothing wrong with that. That's what I say.
Well, listen, thank you very, very much. We appreciate the interview. We're here in Lucca, and I'm talking to Robert. Robert's an attorney from Virginia Beach.
Anyway, so I was telling you that I was in the process of retiring from practice of law this year, April, and instead of settling in any particular place, we decided to take a tour to travel. My wife and I, my wife Svetlana. So I did a lot of research, different websites, places like Airbnb, VRBO, and picked various places to go for a month or 2 at a time, starting here in Lucca for 7 weeks. Then we'll rent a car, drive through Umbria, stay in Naples for a while, fly over to Palermo, be in Palermo for 6 weeks. Then we take a flight from Palermo to Kiev, because my wife being Ukraine, I thought it'd be great to be there with a native Ukrainian. Kiev for a month. Then we fly to Dubrovnik in Croatia, where we'll stay a month. Then we'll go to Kotor, which is in Montenegro, for a month. It's on like a fjord in Montenegro. And we had an apartment in each of these places. Then we fly from Dubrovnik to Rhodes, Greece, for a month in Rhodes. Then fly to Malaga, Spain, for a month.
Sounds like you got quite an itinerary there. But you must love travel. It's got to be, it's something.
Always since I was a kid, since I was in high school. I think I read Kerouac's On the Road, and that sort of set it for me, it set a life path of just wandering. And so I've traveled, always.
Now, my wife's from Poland, but now after the war, the border has changed, so her town now is in Ukraine. But I think back then, how the borders went back and forth, and it was part of the Ukraine, then it was part of Poland. Now I think it's gone back to the Ukraine again.
Well, my mother was from, it is Ukraine now, but she's actually from around Tarnopol, which was a little town called Janow, Janow. And in 1939, I believe it was, between 1939 and 1941, the Russians took her whole town by boxcar to Siberia. They took a train and they had everybody put on the boxcars in the whole town, all the residents. And my grandfather, who I understood was a police officer for the town, but they actually took the whole town and they went to Siberia. And I think she was there a couple years. They separated the women and the men. Now, she was not Jewish, but they just used the Polish people for slave labor and to cut trees down and so forth. And so they were released when the U.S. agreed to have Russia as our allies. One of the stipulations was that the Russians had to release these prisoners from Siberia. So they released them. And my mother was with a bunch of people. They had to walk. She walked 100 miles with no shoes. Yeah, out of Siberia. And they had to walk to a place where they had hospitals in the middle of these plains for these people that were coming. They were refugees. Iran at that time was a very welcoming country, and they said that they would take some of these refugees. So my mother went to Iran. She went to Iran because her parents both died. My grandfather died in the river washing his feet after he left Siberia. He was only in his 40s of a heart attack. And my grandmother died along with one of her other children of typhoid.
This is sort of an arrangement struck between the Americans, Russians, Poles.
American and Russians. And Iran had to be part of the deal. So my mother went there.
How long was she there?
She was there until 1946. She went into a Polish settlement, and then she was working at the Army Air Corps canteen in Iran. There was, America had air bases there, and she met a gentleman from Syracuse, New York, that had just been released from the service, and he was working for TWA, and she married him, and she ended up in Syracuse, New York, where I was born 1 month after she arrived.
So she was almost Iranian, close to it,
Almost, yeah. Almost born on the plane.
Yeah, really.
That's an amazing story.
Well, thank you very much for your input. This is great. We're just trying to encourage people to travel, retire, follow your roots, and just see the world, basically.
I think that Americans, in my experience, of course, I've traveled since I was in college. All I've done is travel, it seems, but other than practice law. But they're pretty narrow-minded. Most Americans have no idea, and they've got an idea that everything that we do or every way we do it is the best. If you ask them, our schools are the best, our hospitals are the best, our medical care is the best, everything's the best. It's not true. I'm sorry, it's just not true. And if you travel, if you go around Europe, we were with a family this morning up in the hill, up in Carfagna, that she, the woman, the wife, had heart attack, she had ankle surgery, and she had arm surgery, all here in Italy. They've been here 4 years. And their total expense for all of these procedures, being in a hospital for a week here in Lucca with a heart attack, was $156.
I find that amazing because we were here, I think, about 4 years ago, and my wife broke a cap on her tooth. Mm-hmm. So I called Camp Darby, and they told us about an American dentist locally. And we went in there, and she was there for 2.5 hours, and all I could see was cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching in my mind, right? I said, there goes all the vacation money. We're done, right?
Yeah.
$100. Like you say, it was amazing.
Yeah. So it tells you that something's wrong with our provision of health care in America. Yeah. Horribly wrong. And yet there's this resistance to an open-mindedness about whatever they're doing in Canada or England or France or Italy or the Netherlands. It seems to work. They're healthy people. They have access to health care. They have access to good health care, excellent doctors. This lady raved about the treatment she got in the hospital.
Since my wife has done this DNA test, I was saying we've been pretty much everywhere in Italy over the years. And we started doing the research, and a lot of the research brought us into the cemeteries. Mm-hmm. And the cemeteries are so family oriented. A family reunion, you watch these people come in and pay respects to their family. And I think we're missing that.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. I mean, I went to visit a family I'd met, and I was bringing some flowers for the wife. It was a couple about my age at that time. And it was like, no, you don't give the flowers to the wife. You give it to the grandmother. And everyone was there, and it's respect for the old elder. No, she wouldn't even touch the flowers. They had to go to her mother, who was there, the old grandmother. And their family unit here is still very, you're right.
When we were living in Germany, we got a Bernese Mountain Dog, and we went to pick up the puppy. It was this huge house, and the wife and the husband, both their parents and their grandparents, were all living in this home. Yeah. And that's just so amazing to see something like that. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Mike, before we end this segment today, I just thought that the people, the expats that we met with, just got thinking about what they must have gone through to be able to move from the country of other places that they had lived, to leave their home country and to go to a new country to live. It certainly must have taken a lot of courage, and I'm sure they did a lot of research. And just by talking to the majority of them, I think that they think, and I think, that they really certainly made the right decision for themselves, at least for now. So I'm glad they're enjoying their lives, and we're enjoying ourselves by meeting up with groups like this. So I hope everybody will stay tuned for our next segment, which, like Mike mentioned, we'll be in Ireland next week, which is a new experience for us. So Truman and I and Mike will be in Dublin, and we hope to be able to stay in touch with you from there. So, as I always end the program, and Mike does too, we always say,
Arrivederci.
Yes, arrivederci. See ya. Bye-bye.
Boomers on Travel thanks you for being a part of our growing travel family. Join us next week for Travel Talk, focused on value and exciting travel destinations.